we are live. We are streaming live somewhere. We are alive and we are live, so we have a photographer behind. So we have a link that will showcase all our photos here. I don't know where's the link and I don't know, but I'm sure someone at the back there will let you know, oh, there's music, right? Hi and welcome again. My name is Chrissy. This is Belinda. And as you can tell from our ridiculous outfit, we are your CEO for the day, your Chief Entertainment Officer. So this event is intentionally kept smaller. We understand that it's Consensus Week, it's Switch, it's Blockchain Week. So I think 80–90% of you will have like event fatigue by now. So I hope your pizza will have cheered you up a bit. Hey, come sit down, Lei. At the back. And I'll let Belinda introduce like who we kind of like represent today, and how come we are grateful that you're here. Yeah. Oh, I'm not prepared yet. No, just kidding. Oh, hi. We are actually part of both of us run this company called Blockchain Projects. So we've been around for like a year. So today it's actually the launch of the Block Club. Sorry, because I was fidgeting. Sorry, give me a second. So the Block Club is actually an initiative by Southeast Asian leaders, because we feel like, compared to the rest of the world, we have like US, we have like China. Southeast Asia is really a place with a lot of potential. So this Block Club is actually a non-profit, whereby we have like partners in multiple countries. So with us here today, we have Jason, the guy with the blue guy, our partner in Taiwan, and we have Cypher side, which is taking care of Vietnam. And we have a representative from Cypher. Mark, say hi. Oh, hi. Yeah, and in Thailand we have our house, who's I think a friend of many here. And we have... House is not here yet, we'll make him do a dance later. Okay. So today is just, we have an event in Thailand already, so today is just the launch of our SG site. So for us, it's really like if you have any projects that you want to push to Southeast Asia, and Southeast Asia is such a peculiar region, every country has their own language, so just come to us and then we will help you like push your project and also reach out to a wider range of audience. So I think that's our key aim today, and I think for us, interestingly, is that we are all friends. We really started intention to help friends out. Like even for this kind of event, for us, we like to do things casual. So everybody's more or less a friend of a friend. So before we start, right, can we just maybe say hi to the person on your left? Our left is hi. Cheers. Don't worry, we'll give you beer later, so that will be fine. Everybody, are you done with the left side? But now we need to do it the right way. So can you say hi to someone on your right side? Maybe. So we really like to keep things casual. So if any question, you just throw it up to us. So so if you don't know what you're here for, or if you don't know the topic for today, let me just remind you. Today we're going to talk about security token offering. Have anyone not heard of a security token offering? Show of hands, don't be shy. Great, at the end of today you will find out. So this buzzword of STO is something that has been perplexing me and Belinda for the past a while. So to be honest, there is a selfish reason for us for organizing the event today. It's because we are so tired of reading Medium articles and watching YouTube videos. We just really want to hear it from the people who've actually done it, who've actually experienced or have dealt with SEC before. And the speakers that we had the pleasure of bringing here together today have done exactly that. So we shall not stand in the way between us and the better brains. Yes. And let us just invite our speakers today. The format for today's show is slightly different. They will get 5 to 7 minutes to talk about themselves. After that, we'll get a quick 5 minutes break, everyone here, to regroup, grab a beer, and come back for a panel. So the purpose of them introducing themselves and what they've done before is so that you can formulate any question that you have about STO and then ask them during the panel discussion later. We have a lot. So yeah, I hope the key takeaway is I hope everyone leaves here today with a little bit more information about STO, this and that, and the future of blockchain as what we suspect it might become. Okay?
Before we start, I just need to have a bit of commercial thank you.
Oh yeah.
So, we have Cypher who sponsored the pizza. So thanks to Cypher.
The kind souls at Cypher for our dinner.
I think Cypher is a bit late. Hi House.
Hey House. Sup House. House is the Thai partner for Block Club. So he's done Block Club event there. He's supposed to come up here and dance later because he's late.
And we have Ace Capital and Marco Tree who gave us a beer. So just very fast for a while. We'll give really very good drinks later. Sorry, pardon me. Okay. Without further ado, we have 4 speakers today. So we'll start with Ivan. I will just let Ivan introduce himself really fast. Ivan, please. Yeah. Hey. Can we round of applause please for Ivan?
Hello everyone, thanks for having me here. Who's here because you're excited about security tokens?
Me.
Who's here because of food? See people. I'm here for both actually. I'm not consider myself as some kind of huge expert in the space because we have some people who are more knowledgeable. For example, we have John Wu here, the CEO of SharesPost. Yeah, so if you guys want to speak to a true expert with many years in the space, that's the person you should talk to. But I hope I'll be able to give you some kind of high-level information, and that's what probably most of you are looking for because you're just kind of discovering the space, right? Yeah, so I'm based in Silicon Valley despite my beautiful French accent. I've been in the States for 9 years, but originally from Russia, of course. I'm a serial entrepreneur, so for my previous company I raised over 20 million in VC funding. It was around logistics space, and then I sold it at the end of last year, and then I've been focused on the securities token space since then. So that's my kind of background. So how can I switch All right, so this one. Okay. Yeah. So let's get started. So basically, potentially, security token space is much bigger than utility tokens. Especially now when the market is down, everybody's talking more about securities, and securities themselves is a huge market. So if you're tokenizing a kind of small part of that, it's going to be much bigger market than the crypto. And for the investors also, now there is some kind of hesitation, hey, what's the benefit? But again, we have more development in the space, more exchanges are launching that are going to trade securities. Again, if you're interested in exchanges, please talk to John, who's launching, I think, in November, right? So yeah, they're going to start trading security tokens in November, so very soon. And once investors taste this liquid secondary market, it will be really hard to pull them away. So everybody will be going there, and we'll see a huge boom basically in the next couple of years. So that's how we envision that. But before that, so let's talk a little bit why we need to tokenize securities. What's the benefit? Of course, number one reason is potential liquidity, right? So now we have some assets that are not liquid. So for example, private company equity, right? So you invest in a startup, and then you need to wait several years for the potential liquidity then. Or if it's a VC fund, so VC funds, they typically lock their investors for 5, 7, sometimes up to 10 years. And by tokenizing the fund, you could lock up the capital, but not the actual investors, because investors can trade those tokens with somebody else, and this is kind of additional liquidity for them. And what's the benefit for the issuer? So basically the same type of assets with a higher liquidity will be priced higher, right? So if you're doing a startup, if you're just raising equity round, it's going to be one price. But if it's going to be same terms, but you offer your investors potentially higher liquidity, your startup will be priced higher. So you'll benefit, and also your investors will benefit because they could have some benefits related to that. So this is the primary thing, and then we'll have general optimization related to blockchain, could eliminate some inefficiencies, necessary middlemen, and things like that. So that's the promise. There was a quote by Bruce Fenton, who's big about security tokens, and he's investor and board member at T0. So basically, the quote was about that securities are like especially a big use case for the blockchain, and by tokenizing securities, you're not only optimizing the processes, but potentially this may increase the size of the market, because those securities will be traded worldwide without the friction, and also like potential unbanked population can join the trading. So this could increase the market significantly as well. So, and use cases we have like around tokenized equity, funds tokenization, derivatives, bonds, asset bundles, and things like that. So there are like different kinds of securities that could be tokenized, of course. So of course we have problems right now because still infrastructure in its infancy. So we have like tech issues, like legal issues, there's lack of clarity from regulators, and of course one of the biggest issues is liquidity. But as I said, some exchanges are already launching. So like shares post, and I did a little bit of mistake here. So I wrote Asia because I thought that they focus on Asian market. Yeah, also okay. Thanks. But actually, for shares post, #1 market is United States, and Asia is second. But still, you guys are very big on Asia, right? So, and we had recently some big announcement from Binance, from Coinbase. Like Binance, they partnered with Malta Stock Exchange. They're going to develop the security token exchange like out of Malta. Why Malta? Because Malta recently adopted new regulations, so that are actually making that jurisdictions friendly for the blockchain companies, and that's why like more and more companies they go into Malta. And I know some exchanges out of Singapore who are actually going to Malta and getting licensing. So that's why Malta is probably going to be quite big. But we'll see. And of course, in the United States, we have like Coinbase, and Coinbase recently they acquired 3 companies with licenses just to be able to trade security tokens. And the CEO gave a talk recently at TechCrunch Disrupt. So basically, he said that like next year they're going to trade hundreds of security tokens, and in a few years potentially there'll be like millions of security tokens trading. So they are like very big, and they see security tokens kind of next step for their business. And we have like open finance, so probably they will be like the first one. So are they launching before you? So I think they said they're going to start trading this month.
I think they're open.
Yeah.
But the volume is low because there's just not that much going on.
Yeah. So they probably be like the first one to start trading, and so those guys based in Chicago, they are holding back. And we have T0 that's raised like crazy money. I don't think they closed the deal with all investors, but if we combine all together, their funding will be like over 400 million T0. So we'll see like more exchanges like coming in the next like year or two, and we'll have another speaker from like Gibraltar Stock Exchange as well. So it'll be also exciting to listen what's going on in Gibraltar. And of course, we have token issuance platforms. So because somehow issuers need to do the offering, and here we see like a lot of players in the space, like Polymath. So maybe like who have you heard of Polymath? So okay, so quite a few of you. So Polymath were one of the first security token issuing platform, and they got a lot of PR, and that's why like many people know them, and we can respect them because they were one of the pioneers. But there are many token issuance platforms in development right now who are focused on different use cases. So for example, we personally focus on use cases around like equity tokens. So, and once you do the offering with this platform, so basically you need like lawyers, you need service providers, you need some kind of technology, and potentially like those platforms, they can provide you all that. You know, they provide the technology and they provide you connections with different service providers, depending on the jurisdiction you're launching that. So if you're launching like out of United States, you can be like connected with service providers that like serving the American market, which is like KYC, broker dealers, also providers that do verification of accredited investor status and things like that. So I hope I give you some good high-level information, and you have like more understanding about what's going on in the security space. But again, there are some like really knowledgeable people in the crowd, so please feel free to talk to them to learn more. Thank you.
And you're on time. One more second and you have to start dancing.
Yes, I practiced. Wow.
So each speaker, as a reminder, you have about 7 minutes. If you go over that, you have to start dancing and sing a song while you finish your pitch. Yeah.
Let's prepare the background music. Okay. Next up we have Sebastian. Sebastian is actually the strategic advisor to Caribou. So he was previously a partner at Blockchain Global. So he has a bit of investment background. So we let Sebastian have the floor.
You want to start with a dance first?
Yeah, Sebastian has said that he can dance.
Sorry, I'm not the laptop owner. Laptop.
Oh, no, that's all right. Can I juggle? Awesome. Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Ivan, for the wonderful introduction on security tokens. I'll sort of piggyback on a lot of what Ivan said, but sort of give a little bit more context. My background is by trade as a lawyer, and 2.5 years ago we pivoted into focusing on early stage tech from a legal and then more recently into an advisory capacity or an investment capacity. So we were part of the first 100 million ever of ICOs in 2016. And then sort of mapped, very fortunately, a lot of the market last year, sort of spent a lot of time Singapore, China, Australia, and more recently into the United Kingdom. And that's sort of been typically very much on the ICO point of view. I think the past 12 months for us, we've seen a lot more issues with a lot of the companies that we've invested into. Where there's been a disconnect in terms of what they're going to do in their roadmap, what they're going to be delivering. We've seen a lot of problems with the incentives between investors and those that are operating ICO companies. As a result of that, we've welcome to my new friends at the front. As a result of that, we've really seen some of the issues that come with ICOs. And as following on, we've pivoted to focus on STOs where we think there's less of a disconnect or less of an agency problem, less of a trust problem within the investment market. It's a very zen slide. There we go. We see security tokens as being the asset class that will open up. Blockchain to the international community, the institutional investors. And that's a space where you're able to see a very clear legal link between the underlying asset, the economic interest of that asset, and then the corresponding the benefit will then correspondingly flow to the holder of that token. And so we see that security token market being a very big, or sort of the next stage for investment. And as a result, we spent a lot of time focusing on finding companies that are targeting that and targeting very from a regulatory point of view. the big kind of tech challenge, or the big challenge isn't so much a tech challenge with security tokens. We see that very much as a regulatory challenge. We've seen, as Ivan's mentioned, we've seen a lot of the major investors, the institutional exchanges, really writing big checks for, to get their licenses. And that's going to be where the play comes in. So it's a lot less, I suppose it's a lot less interesting from a technical point of view, a lot less sophisticated from a technical point of view, but very, very difficult, very, very long, relatively long term in terms of solving from a regulatory point of view. But the time or the effort is sort of very much going to be worth it, considering the size of the addressable market. You see so many players running so very hard at it in a lot of different spaces. For us, the focus is very much on the United Kingdom, that being a gateway into the EU. I think that's really been, Europe generally, even from crypto, has been a very underrepresented market segment. Not a lot of investment has happened relative to adoption or investment of crypto in other OECD countries, as well as China, sort of top 20 countries. And so that's sort of a space where we're spending, or Caracal is spending, a significant amount of its time. Again, the issue is going to be around the regulatory space, and it's going to be how adept teams are at being able to integrate their technical solutions into the underlying, or the underlying legal system, and work with the regulators to develop that. So we're sort of taking very strategic bets across teams that are able to do that. And we sort of see that anyone that has a time for 12 months, within the sort of next 12 months, we'll start seeing who the winners really are. May well be the Coinbases, may well be those from the market, or maybe those currently in the London Stock Exchange that are already have the pipes already in place and liquidity in place, and all they need to do is flip the technical switch to be able to trade this new asset class. So it's a bet worth taking, and we're certainly looking forward to seeing how the next 12 months play out. Thank you.
Thank you. I see you brought your own fans.
Yeah, it's built in practice.
Love security tokens. The rest as well, everyone else. And then now we have our next speaker, Chanji from. Hey, come over tonight. Sure. Tell us more about how the exchange is going.
Sure. Actually, just thanks so much.
Speak nearer to them. Okay, hi everybody. It's great to be here. I'm CJ. I run business development at Gibraltar Stock Exchange. It's the last day of consensus today, so it's still great to see that there's still so many of you around, because it's been an extremely tiring week. But yeah, a very big thank you to Belinda and her team for inviting us over to speak on the topic of security tokens. We heard that it's actually one of the topics that was heavily discussed during consensus. I'm not too sure about it, because I came to the point of time when I realized that it's way better just skip the main event, go to the side events, have your private one-to-one meetings. Exactly. But yeah, on the topic of STOs, that's something that a lot of people have actually asked us about in increasing frequency over the past few months. Can the Gibraltar Stock Exchange launch an STO? Or can the Gibraltar Blockchain Exchange actually launch an STO? So that's actually one of the reasons why I'm here to answer some of these questions, as well as to shed some light on the process of doing an STO. Oh, okay. So some of the problems that we actually face when we try to issue a traditional security, as well as some of the incoming problems when we try to issue a securities token. It deals with issues like regulation, with issues like liquidity, with issues like settlement. Because the key thing that you have to take note of is that when you actually deal with an STO for securities, right, it has to be regulated. It has to operate in a regulated environment, because at the end of the day, the security is very different from an ICO, which is unregulated. There is an existing framework, there's an existing securities regulation framework that will govern how you actually deal with the securities tokens. And that is the reason why tokenizing of securities is so huge, because things like regulation, things like compliance, right? You can actually code all of this. You can code this into a smart contract, put it onto the token, code it at the protocol level, and it makes things way more efficient. It's easy to automate it, essentially. But the thing is, when we went around as the Gibraltar Stock Exchange Group, when we went around the world, when we talked to people, attend events, conferences, we realized that there was a distinct lack of leadership and really a lot of fragmentation within the industry itself with regards to securities token. And the reality of it is that the top exchanges of today, they will be vastly different from the top exchanges of tomorrow. And we believe that at the Gibraltar Stock Exchange Group, we are in a unique position because out of the 175 regulated stock exchanges in the world, we are the only one to actually hold a cryptocurrency exchange. So we believe that we can actually bridge that gap between the old world and the new world. And this is why we're actually going one step further. We want to develop a whole new protocol standard, which we call the Global Securities Protocol. It is essentially the protocol that delivers tokenized security solutions to the entire global financial service ecosystem. So what is the Global Securities Protocol? Essentially, first and foremost, it is a non-profit global protocol. It is a permission blockchain, but it's open, it's free to use, in the sense that if you are a verified financial institution, if you have an IRMO license, a regulated market operator license, if you have a capital markets service license, if you have an ATS like shares post, then we would want to invite you to come over to our protocol. It's free to use. And the GSX, the Global Securities Protocol, will be developed by a subsidiary of the GSX Group. It will be focused on the enforcement of best regulatory standards on digital tokenized securities. So we want to introduce concepts such as the concept of collateralization, of skin in the game, of customer client money protection. Those are things that we want to enforce. And these are the people that we want to work with: the stock exchanges, the broker dealers, the financial institutions. The key thing over here is that we want to work with people who are regulated, who have licenses, the ability to issue and to trade securities. And I need to emphasize at this point of time that we are not trying to take over the business of our partners. At the end of the day, if you want to issue, if you want to trade, if you want to settle a security, it still must go through the platform, the partner's platform. What we are doing over here is we are creating the platform, the technology know-how to tokenize that security. Because at the end of the day, the Global Securities Protocol, we are not a global workshop. We do not have the license to operate all around the world. We do have a license in the EU, but we do have a license in Asia, in the United States, for example, and we think that's very long to actually get a license. So it could be that on the Global Securities Protocol, it could be that GSX is actually the smallest stock exchange over there. And we are perfectly okay with that because GSX, we are constrained by our population size. We will never become a Nasdaq, we will never become a Dow Jones. But if we are the small stock exchange on the protocol, then it means that we've done a damn bloody good job with the Global Securities Protocol. Right, I think I should just not use the slides anymore. But so these are the benefits for everybody. For the stock exchanges, what we are doing with is we are actually issuing an inclusive platform for everybody to use. So if you think of guys like Nasdaq, guys like Deutsche Börse, for example, what a lot of people don't know is that they actually white label their technology to a lot of stock exchanges out there. So a lot of smaller stock exchanges, they are actually using Nasdaq or Deutsche Börse technology, and it costs them an arm and a leg when they actually buy these licenses fees. But we are free to use. And also for some of the other stock exchanges like SGX, like ASX for example, that want to develop their own blockchain settlement platform, what we're saying is, hey guys, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. Here's our protocol, it's going to be live in Q1 of this year. Try it, use it. If you want to use it, if you want to test it internally for a year, tell us how we can help. And then for the clients, what they have is essentially the ability to have access to a global class of assets. So let's say that if I wake up on a Sunday morning, just take out my phone, buy some Apple shares on the US markets. Simple, it's great. And for the regulators, essentially what we are providing them is an entire protocol, a blockchain protocol that acts as a registrar, that has an audit compliance trail over there, which is easy for them. And lastly, I forgot what this was. So for the financial service providers, guys that want to build a TApp, guys want to build a platform on top of protocol. So it's things like, because we have financial institutions on top of our protocol, so how can we make use of their existing data in the kind of zero knowledge proof kind of concept, or how can we make use of custody solutions that are built on top of the protocol? Because the beauty of blockchain is that there are so many problems out there that people are trying to solve that. We don't want to solve them because that is not our specialty. Our specialty is in the stock exchanges. And so these are the benefits for the issuers. Essentially, they get access to new exchanges, new markets. They have the ability to issue new securities, new forms of securities. And it's not just securities, it's actually securities tokens, which means that you get the full benefit of tokenization. Things like efficiency, things like liquidity, things like reach. And so this is the GSX group structure. On the left-hand side, we have the Gibraltar Blockchain Exchange. It is really up and running. It is a utilities exchange with a token sale platform over there, as well as an exchange which has fiat to cryptocurrency capabilities, which is huge from a portfolio asset manager perspective, because then you can, I don't know, long Bitcoin, short USD, for example. We also have the Gibraltar Stock Exchange in the middle on the right-hand side, so that is the main market as well as the global markets. We have Juno Services, which is a fund administrative services, the largest in Gibraltar. We acquired them over a year ago. And we have Fort Capital, which is a UK FCA licensed broker dealer. We are in the midst of acquiring them and rebranding them as Friends of Rock Token Capital. So which companies will be the first to list their securities on the global stock exchange protocol? Essentially, we are going to do the same thing that we did for Gibraltar Blockchain Exchange, which was that we did a token sale for GBX, and then we used that as a proof of concept because we said, guys, we did a 27 million raise, 21 million in private sales, 6 million in public sale, completely sold out in 9 seconds. And if you can do that for our own token sale, then you can do that for every other project too. And that's the same thing that we'll do for the GSX group. And I must be careful how I say this in a public setting. The first STO that will be listed on the GSP will be essentially shares, newly issued shares of the GSX group, if you get what I mean. So it is a truly exciting time. So exciting that sounds I forget how to be tired, except for today. Today I'm doing light check. But yeah, there comes a time where you see that there's a paradigm shift over here, and we believe that the top exchanges of today will be very, very different from the exchanges of tomorrow. And we do believe that the GSX group, we have the ability to make this change. So if you want to be part of the GSP protocol, do let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have John. John is working on his own security tokens project, so I'll let him tell you more about it.
It's a Friday night. It's been a long week and you guys are still here. Respect. Security tokens is not a simple subject. So to address it in 5-10 minutes is almost impossible. So I'm just gonna blaze by, and you can feel free to answer questions later on. Before I start, I'm actually wearing 2 hats. One is as an advisor under Vigilant Asset, and secondly, I'm also founder and CEO of an education startup venture called Jules. And so there's a disclaimer here from our legal counsel, because security tokens and the stuff that we're doing really cannot be discuss in public, and there are a lot of constraints. So hence, that's why I just said that it's quite a complex subject. And our legal counsel is Dwayne Morris-Elvin. They were also counsel for example, T0 in the States. And he's currently working on 60 ICO projects. Myself, my background basically has been in tech. It's way too long, but I think I know what you guys are thinking, that I probably single-handedly increased the median age in this room. And I do. But what it's allowed me to do, basically, with my finance and investment banking record, is it gives me a perspective, and a perspective is important. So I've gone through quite a few of them, and obviously the latest one is blockchain. So I'll just go through with you my blockchain journey. Like everyone else, I started looking at the blockchain for fundraising in mid last year. I started with building a rig about 6 years ago with 6 graphics cards and Windows 8 and so on. But this really attracted me because of the ultimate pure form of crowdfunding, where you can take an idea, a semblance of a team, and a well-written white paper, and then raise a lot of money. So I went through my own cycle on that, beginning in June 2017, and I created 4 white papers, all ready to go with all different ideas. I also spoke at quite a few educational blockchain-related events, talking about the blockchain and talking about education and where it's relevant. But I didn't do my ICO, none of those 4. Instead, what I did was an STO. And this was done a couple of weeks back. It's very new. And it's gone through a lot of, many hundreds of hours of ideating, and as well as trying to figure out what is going to work and what is not. And so obviously, I'm just going to take you through my own methodology of how I thought about it, and then we can always discuss. And I'm not meant to be provocative or anything like that. This is just my own views. And I didn't pull the plug because a career of 30 years working under banking with a legal landscape, transparency and corporate governance, and 50, 60 years of securities laws and so on. I just couldn't pull the plug and pull the trigger and do an ICO, even though I was entertained with many offers to, raise $30, $50 million, and then half of it would be mine. I'm sure some of you have entertained some of that, but it doesn't exist anymore. And so, as recent as July, people were still raising lots of money. This one, case in point. If any of you invested in any of these, you'll know what I mean by this. All these ICOs went to zero. So what is a utility token over the last 18 months? Well, it's basically blaming a loophole that's been exploited. Today, you can open any one of those apps that list all the utility tokens and all the tokens in the universe, and you'll see that there's roughly this number of coins. They're all pretty much gone to zero except for very few. Now, what has happened? Well, some of them have gone from 10 cents to $2 and then back to 2 cents. For everyone that bought it at $2 and now it's 2 cents, it's a retail investor who put in their hard-earned money. which then leads to why security tokens, right? This one everyone knows, and so the interesting thing is, even the VCs that have been invested heavily in the blockchain, like Pantera Capital and Polychain Capital and so on, they've all been subpoenaed by the SEC. Investors have been subpoenaed by the SEC because there are tax complications and tax implications of them holding it. And then let's not just go with the definition of what an ICO and a utility token is. Let's just go with what an STO is, right? So the future really is in STO, as all my previous speakers have spoken about. And in plain English, that's all it is. It's an STO, right? Broken into its two common denominators. So what's next? Now comes the rise of the security tokens. This is a complex subject, right? It takes a lot of legal firepower. It takes a lot of financial structuring to create the right financial structure for a security token. Yes, you can have generic platforms that can write the smart contracts in a generic basis, but you have to think about the implications of what you're selling as a security token, right? Which is different from the other asset classes. What makes an investor put money into your token versus putting it in an equity-linked instrument or a debt instrument or a convertible instrument or anywhere in between the investment spectrum, depending on what your risk-reward profile is. It's kind of complicated to go through all of it, but just look at the highlight items, and basically these are the reasons why the security tokens are definitely going to take off. I just want to close off with the fact that there are still a lot of questions that remain unanswered with security tokens. This is a rapidly evolving market. The technology is also changing really quickly, but the platforms are being set up. The securities exchanges are going to open. One of my partners in my company has already opened one at UAE, and then followed by Malta soon as well. And that it's BTSE. There are many of these exchanges coming up, and then it'll only be a matter of time when NASDAQ and SoftBank have also said that they will be opening up their exchanges in the near future. So this is a land of opportunity for what we call the new financial internet. Don't let the ICOs and what has happened in the last 18 months discourage you, because I can actually go through a really long presentation with you and know why you should stay in this field, but I'm not going to do that. But just be assured that with a security token, you're just seeing it in really in like basement 3 level, and then it's going to start gradually getting up more in complexity, and then it'll become commonplace. So happy to discuss a lot more. I won't take up too much of your time. Thanks.
Thank you all. A quick recap on the people that we've heard from today. This recap serves for the purpose of what my takeaway was, so that when you want to craft questions for the second, more interesting part later, this is what we did. Ivan came to speak with us earlier. Ivan, my key takeaway was he had very close interaction with the SEC when he was trying to push through some security tokens regulation before. So I'll be asking you a lot of questions about how was dealing with SEC like really. And then when you have Sebastian here and his own little fan club, we'll leave the questions to your fan base. To your fan base, yeah. We have, of course, Chanji from Gibraltar Exchange. I have a lot of questions at the hive about how the exchange climate will change and how the liquidity issues and climate will evolve with security tokens. And of course, John, he's himself skin in the game and crafting, going through the process himself. So we're going to take a quick 10-minute break so that you can think of questions to us, the people that we've assembled for you today. And then we have hidden some beer in a room somewhere. If you can find it, the beer is yours. Alright? See you guys back here in 10 minutes. Okay, a bit.
Leave it to me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
is not as cool as us because I think the fish is a bit faulty. But if you like beer, you can still have some beer right now on the left hand side.
Actually, Bitcoin is obviously maybe a good option. People are facing platforms, but there's certainly relevant. So it might change a lot. Digital asset. We just we're very choosy.
I don't mind.
This lady was asking a question.
Actually, I want some water.
Hi, I'm Emma. This is Sebastian. Yeah.
How good was his speech?
Guys, I just heard you guys open an office in I mean, both parts, they're doing STO. Are you investing in STO? Like any STO?
Not in a good
Yeah, no, I think that like we're still registered like the game is still kind of assets and like issuing securities are quite interesting, especially security like early stage companies.
Hello everyone, can I invite you to sit down? We are going to start the panel soon. And for the designated speakers, you know where you can choose your seats. Hi everyone in the back, we're going to start the panel soon. May I invite you to sit down? Hi! Hey, the last person to sit down has to do a dance for us, yes? Oh, we're going to prepare the music. Anyone have any? Yes? No? It can be a group dance too. Yeah, he did the opening. Oh, yeah. So we got. Yeah, you guys should join him in the closing. Everyone here will be. Do we have that? Do we have that? Really? Hi, can I have you sit down? Come, sit. The last person to sit down has to do a.
Yeah, that'll be on WhatsApp.
Guys, if you're less spending, you have to dance with
We also have a new addition to the panel team. I don't know who you are. No, I'm just kidding. Next, please. Is that all? Everyone? Shall we settle down? Shall we? Can we start? Round introduction of yourself.
Hi, I am Carlo Mascaris. I'm a co-founder, CEO of a company called Coin Alpha, based in Silicon Valley, Mountain View. And we create decentralized financial products using machine learning, artificial intelligence, and smart contracts blockchain.
Hi, my name is John Wu. I'm the CEO of the Digital Assets Group at Shares Post. We are creating a marketplace, as I have said, for security tokens in the US, and we're also creating a network of settlement providers in order to leverage the infrastructure in terms of settling and transferring of security tokens to enable the trading for global crypto exchanges.
As I said before, I'm Ivan, the CEO and founder of Monica, which is a tokenization platform, and we're focused on most use cases around equity.
Sebastian, investor from a strategic advisor to Caracol, which is tokenizing assets into the United Kingdom.
Also designated dancer of the night.
Correct, with the cheese ball.
CJ here from GSX. That's my main job. On the sidelines, I work for a family office that invested very deeply in the GBX as well.
I was the last, John, and I spoke about security tokens.
Like 3 minutes ago. And I'm Chrissy, in case you missed us earlier, or you're always missing us, or you were a little bit late. I'm Chrissy, this is Belinda. We're just here to make sure that for selfish reasons, we want to learn about security tokens anyway. So before I start, is there any burning questions on the floor? If not, I'll go first. Just now in one of the presentations, we kind of break down the issues that security token climate currently face into tech, legal, liquidity, and regulators. So now that we have like 2 issuance platform here, tell us more about the tech. Why do you need like a specialized issuance platform for security token? Why can't I just get a random blockchain developer to do it?
Actually, you don't need a platform. You can get a random blockchain developer, but what kind of quality of service you get, right? So, and for like many issues, it doesn't make sense to do that. So, because again, it's costly. Also, like there is quality issue, and so like everybody can like wait on their own. Maybe some issuers will decide, no, we want to do like our way, and we want to use like our own developers, for example.
One of the other big reasons is that you actually have sort of an insurance pool. Like if we have liability, limited liability, and we have insurance that a sophisticated institution would want to make sure that they're de-risking by having that sort of thing in place as well.
I think when you think of a tokenization of an asset, having a right platform to do it, each of the platform providers have their own value add that may be slightly different, but fundamentally, I think you cover 2 things. One is you're transferring the rights of ownership or rights to access to the network or rights to an asset onto a digital security, or a digital token, I should say. And then the second thing that's actually important with security token offerings is the ability to properly whitelist and properly transfer and settle these shares. There are very strict rules in the traditional financial institutions, and a tokenization platform that can properly whitelist, properly settle, allow for the settlement and transferring of, and the registry of a lot of these security tokens, makes it a lot easier for it when it lands on a trading platform such as mine, my venue for secondary trading. So all the different tokenization platforms probably provide their own little benefits and value adds, but I think those 2 functions are probably the most important ones from my vantage point.
I think just to add on to Johnny's point, definitely, especially because when you're dealing with securities, it's the concept of ownership over there. So how do you make sure that when you trade a security, who ends up holding that security? Because if it's just like a utility token, right, then that's essentially like a barrier security, which is not exactly legal over here. So that's why you need a blockchain over there, a kind of permission blockchain where you know who is holding onto the security at any point of time. As John was saying, if you can actually code the kind of restrictions into these tokens, then it facilitates a lot the concept of liquidity over there, not just for public markets, but especially in the private markets.
I would just say that there isn't any one shoe that fits all when it comes to security token issuances, even though you've got generic platforms. Because the structuring, and we'll still need to look at how do you make the tokens attractive enough to get an investor to invest in it when you compare it with all the other asset classes. So structuring it and putting it on a platform is really nice, but you still need to compare this against an equity-linked instrument, a debt instrument, a convertible instrument, and all the other financial instruments in between, right? And you got to factor that, and then that leads to whether you can actually put all of those features onto a generic exchange platform. So that's something that I don't think there are answers to that right now, but it'll have to be addressed.
Anything to add?
So today, I think in the earlier discussion and the sharing, we shared more about what kind of asset classes are suitable for securitization or tokenization. We've heard about like real estate to become a security token. We heard about a lot of like loans, anything that can be collateralized really, and then funds, LP ownership. How about like current utility token? And to be honest, there's a lot of utility token now that are really disguised security. And what are your views about that? And what kind of asset class do you think would be more suitable? Or if there's anyone here thinking about tokenizing their cows or tokenizing their swimming pool, like what are your views and any restrictions and comments?
I think for me, you could potentially tokenize everything, but I think the real transformative value is when you tokenize private markets, because the thing with private markets is that these shares, there are restrictions placed on top of them. For example, if I'm holding on to a company and there's more than 99 investors, you're forced to go public. So there are things like cost of compliance related when you're going public, or if you're a REIT and you go below a certain number of shareholders, right, then you lose some tax benefits. But the thing is, if I can tokenize this and put everything on the smart contract, the kind of restrictions over there, then essentially what I'm doing is I am locking in capital, but I'm not locking in investors. So that is huge because it is a kind of restricted pool of liquidity, but still liquidity. So I think for me it's private markets.
I agree, but I also want to add that it's also the public market. What you're going to find is, come next year onwards, just like in 1995, what happened? 1995, all of us could get on the internet, right? Because of the advent of Netscape and Navigator. Did we understand what HTTPS was at that time? No, we didn't. We didn't care because you could just browse the internet for porn, right? So at that time. So same thing with this is funny. It's the same thing that's going to happen with the what I would call the revolution in securities token, and these guys with the exchanges are going to benefit the most. And is that public companies will now start to look at fundraising, and when they do a secondary offering, they could do, instead of equity warrants and so on, they could do tokenized assets, so that investors can now start to look at this asset class and start to understand it, right? And they take a more conservative view of it before they go fully digital, right? So this is just the beginning of the wave.
Yeah, I mean the ICO boom is the sort of been the boom in early stage funding, and then basically that's really one very small segment of the funding life cycle for a company, and then it's only a very small segment of investment for asset classes. So basically anything that will increase the diversity of assets for, so for example in across Southeast Asia, where perhaps institutional fund managers don't have a very big diversity of types of assets they can invest into. Then tokenized, whether it's real estate, tokenized, commodities, tokenized assets from different parts of the world that would add a lot of value to a portfolio manager in a country that doesn't have substantial access to different asset classes. Then that for us is an area that sort of becomes quite exciting, because you're really unlocking value on both sides, both whoever's issuing and then providing products or assets that institutions are sort of craving but don't yet have access to. And tokenization makes it a lot quicker, cheaper, and potentially easier to do, subject to what we'll see over the next sort of 12 to 18 months with regulation and the first sort of successful cases in insurance.
Yeah, I'm personally big on tokenization of equity, and it's not only for private companies but for public companies as well, because the ledger of securities markets doesn't need to be controlled by the centralized body, and actually even large players they will find about that. So because that will reduce the friction in trading, and this not only optimize the things but can potentially increase the size of the market.
I think Ivan mentioned in one of his slides earlier where tokenization is actually also a tool that allows you to bundle different packages, whether it's equity or debt. So tokenization is also, to me, kind of a more eloquent way to structure products. Not that different from what we saw 10 years ago when Wall Street, financial engineering created all of these different creative structures. We can argue now that the leverage on top of those products ultimately led to some bad things. But when done cleverly and well, tokenization is a far more eloquent tool to help people structure and create products that we haven't even thought about today. Obviously, we'll start with real estate, equity, as mentioned here, but there are going to be structured products that we don't even understand right now.
So one of the fundamental visions behind my company is that we think basically anything in the traditional finance world can be done more efficiently using smart contracts, using the blockchain. So for example, and kind of on what John said, is creating structured products where you can customize risk for different investors. So something like my background was in structuring interest rate FX structured products on Wall Street. So doing things like that much more efficiently using tokens, using blockchain smart contracts is much more efficient. For example, one of the products that my company has created in the market is we've created a fund protocol which basically handles hedge fund shares for hedge fund managers, which handles allocations to investors, whitelisting, and also making sure it does all the payments process. It's much more efficient than having third parties doing all that. We also have another protocol, which is kind of what John mentioned as well. It's like bundling. So how do you combine different? When it comes out to it, structured products you're just cutting up different risks, selling different parts to different parts of the market, which have appetite for, let's say, equity portions or debt portions. That's exactly what structured products are, and it can be done much more efficiently using smart contracts.
Any questions from the ground? Any comments?
Hi, I'm Tim. So just wanted to ask what your thoughts are on this. So the way I see blockchain is as kind of just a state transition machine with a consensus mechanism that ranges from decentralization and centralization. Now the key kind of benefit of blockchain is that we kind of have a fourth party to validate the transactions that happen on the blockchain. Yeah. So with what you guys are, I guess the tokenization of assets, how do you benefit from I guess or how are you even decentralized in that sense? How do you what's the consensus mechanism that you guys would use for blockchain that runs security tokens, for example? There may be no answer. just so that you guys won't be put in a spot right here.
You're really out on the spot. Thank you. Any comments?
I would take that. So I think at the end of the day, when you issue or you trade a security token, right, the person who executes that trade, that settles that trade, it still must be in a regulated entity, for example, an exchange. Maybe I'm a bit biased there, but it could be a broker-dealer as well, right? In terms of the consensus model, one thing that we ourselves are doing for our global securities protocol is that we have nodes on top of it. So there are nodes that actually uses DPoS over there. So these nodes, they are regulated entities, okay, which is tough because then how do you get a regulated? Yes, it is centralized, but the thing is centralization really a bad thing over here when you're dealing with security? So I think it would be centralized for sure, or at least that's the way that we can envision it to be. You wouldn't have like 30,000 nodes, for example. You would have maybe 21 nodes or 39 nodes like EOS or whatever, right? Or Hashgraph. But the key thing is that these nodes, they have to be regulated, and there's not a lot of people that would have that ability to be regulated. So I don't know if I answered that. Let's be more or less centralized.
The only portion that remains regulated is settlement, because that's regulatory, right? Custody and liquidity, that's infrastructure, there's good stuff around it, right? It's just settlement, like getting my money back, right?
Yeah, so of course it's centralized because securities are agreements and agreements are centralized basically, right? So, but you can decentralize some financial services around that. So for example, if you need services like appraisal for like equity or for the real estate, you need like providers, like those providers, they generate reports that could be like stored off-chain, but what you can write like on-chain is some kind of attestations from those providers, and those attestations will be attached to the token.
I don't think it really answers the question, but the way that I see it is, you know, when we're doing the whole ICO thing, it's like the tech guys, the new world, the cowboy town, trying to embrace the whole purist, like decentralized and anti-establishment kind of thing. And then with STO, again, it's the establishment layer added to this environment that we are all very comfortable with. Like, you know, no rules, no regulators. You are responsible for your own private key. But I think when it comes to such traditional assets, there will be a traditional gameplay back, traditional flavor added back to it. Hence the regulation part. I think we look at. You're right. Anyway, any other comments, questions on the ground?
How do you see the role of AI for the clearinghouse between the different settlements?
Future tech. Future tech, anyone? I guess the answer is we'll see when the time comes.
I have no idea.
We cannot answer that.
Thank you for your question.
Do you have any comments on that? What do you think?
Yeah, it's in Canada and in the US right now, we're like all the regulators are towards all tokens or securities, and I've been involved in Canada with the regulators, and most of the talk is all about how to protect the investors, how to make sure that there's no financing of terrorism and all of that. The problem is we cannot centralize that data. We cannot centralize an institution to manage this, because if that institution get hacked, what happened, right? And when someone loses stock, what happened? The only way I see to fix that is to make sure there is a program or something that will control and manage, but without our control. That's how I see the only way to make sure that within all the countries or within all the different jurisdictions and laws, there's going to be a way to automate that process and make sure that everyone agree on the same thing.
I just like add on to what he says. So it's like tokenizing an asset, right? I want to buy this token from tokenizing somebody's part of somebody's house. How do I verify it? How do you tie a token to assets that are outside of the blockchain? How do you, a non-digital asset, for example?
I'll jump into a question first. I think one application that's being measured at the moment is in regard to how you manage the concept of continuous disclosure when you start having hundreds of thousands of different types of assets actually tokenized. Even if you start tokenizing thousands and thousands of early stage companies, how do you manage the information that is being, if there is a requirement for continuous disclosure, how do you manage that that's actually happening and that there's some validation that the thing that is meant to exist is still there? and that's sort of a big data problem. And so, it may not directly be AI that solves it. It might not be, that level of sophistication. But certainly there's, there's that conceptualization of the application of with big data being able to, someone being able to track that, or some sort of program being able to track that and keep up to date, and then provide, a feedback into, whatever the investor is looking at, or whether there's a central body that's, or an exchange that's saying, this thing still actually exists, and there's some real feed going back into that to kind of continue to instill trust.
I'll add on to that and build upon that. I think a specific example would be right now when an exchange trades in the traditional financial system, the reason you can just have high frequency guys and fast bots go in there and do automated trading is because there's net settlement and it takes time so basically there's not, a direct settlement. It's a net settlement program at the end of the day, end of the week, or whatever, depending on the product. So with the blockchain conceptually and with probably big data or some sort of eloquent algorithm, you can actually have real-time settlement. And once you have real-time settlement, you cut down a lot of excess in the process. I mean, when we went from T3 to T2 settlement, it saved hundreds of millions of dollars for the settlement houses in the US. So you can apply that to instant settlement.
So optimizing the settlement process.
And optimizing the settlement process, you have no idea how much we can save and how many new things we can create.
Comments? Yes.
Hi, sorry, Sebastian, was it? Yeah, thank you so much for that really interesting and thoughtful answer about continuous disclosure. I guess my question is just around, what I really appreciate about the blockchain industry is, I guess, like the transparency and the continuous disclosure and the truth behind this industry and how you can't screw anybody over. I guess my question is just, how does securities token do that better than utilities tokens in not screwing people over?
Did he make you ask it?
That was, thanks Emma. I think that the big area, and that's what I touched on right at the beginning of the conversation when I spoke, was that there's been an agency problem.
Sorry, do you mind standing up?
One of the things I touched on when I sort of first got up was that there's a big agency problem with the way that tokens, there's no relationship between tokens and a requirement for a management team to have any fiduciary obligation to the investor. And so I think one of the key things that securities can solve in equity context is that you will see the governance relationship between those who have the money and who are operating the company with regard to rights then just accruing to those who own the securities. All of that will depend on specific regulation, but certainly in a place like Australia, where you have or even the US, where there's securities a securities regulatory regime, that STOs fit very squarely within that, then that's sort of the area that will work.
Thank you. Trick will set you free.
So thanks to the panelists for giving your views. I've got one question. So Bitmain recently did a $1 billion raise on I think $14 billion pre-money, post-money thing. Wouldn't it have been great for security tokenization if Bitmain had chosen to do securities tokens for that raise itself? And why did they do it? I mean, if they are a leading blockchain company, their adoption of securities tokens would have led the way. So why not?
The exchange has been terrible.
I have to be honest, I didn't follow the news, so I can't comment on what's the rationale for that. I would suppose that if they choose to do an STO, then I agree, definitely that would be great, because then we actually have some kind of financial data that, I wouldn't say financial data, but more of that they have a financial history over there, that if you use equity, right, then it could justify, because then you can look at this financial data and say, is the value of this token for the STO, is that justifiable? As to why they did an ICO, could be they went to take an easy route over there? I honestly don't know. But
so does that mean that the conventional public markets are an easier route than doing a security token offering? I think that's a serious thing, because if Jihan had adopted it, right, and chosen to do a security token offering, yeah, that's right, exactly. So maybe the big boys or institutional investors would have gone in. Maybe they don't feel that the legal rights are sufficiently protected with security tokens themselves, right? But I think it's a real challenge. But
I think in any emerging technology or emerging innovation process, you have to take, it's actually, ironically, it's not revolutionary, it's evolutionary. And the size of that raise, and if you want to do it in a compliant fashion, required probably a traditional manner. If it were a smaller raise, there are probably enough players in the market on the buy side of that to make that happen. But the point is, we need to get the rails greased and running first. And it's like anything else, that kind of like asking that question is like in 1995, asking why aren't we watching TV and streaming on a PC yet? I mean, mathematically, it was impossible in 1995 for Netflix to happen. The bandwidth, the throughput, the storage, and plus people didn't even realize the power of the mobile device back then. I think once we get the infrastructure here set, people can dream big, and perhaps the future BitMain, there will be $1 billion raise someday.
Yeah, so exactly, like the size of the race is too big for this kind of new technology because many investors just like not ready for that. So it needs some time like in development, and also like second thing, like BitMain actually they are not like highly interested in security tokens, right? So their business is like Bitcoin Cash. And that's why like they don't have like the motivation to promote the space by sacrificing something, to do that in some kind of novel approach. And also, so far, the biggest security token offering is probably T0, right? So there is like around 400 million, and yeah, so it's much less than 1 billion so far. And if Bitcoin, like hypothetically, decide to do that raise with security token, that would probably like fail at this point. But maybe in 2 years after that, many companies will be like raising billions of dollars with security token offerings.
I just add one from the investors' standpoint. So security tokens now smells like the old time where it's a lot of private placement happening, it's a lot of accredited investors happening. Whereas in the ICO scene, we are used to basically why it's so popular in Korea, because it empowers a lot of people who are left out of the traditional big boys race to participate in an investment opportunity. So with the whole whitelisting thing, will the people who were left out of the previous race be left out of the STO revolution or wave as well? What do you think? Like people who are not accredited investors, who are just the retail investors, would they be able to participate in STOs?
So there were a lot of questions in that one statement. But the way private placements kind of work right now, it's very geographically based. And you get access to a lot of US growth private equity type companies like Uber or Lyft because you're in the US. And very hard for Europe or Asians to access that. Large family offices and large institutions can, but in general, it's hard for them. I think part of the promise here for security tokens is that ultimately you're going to create a global linkage of all the accredited investors. And all of a sudden, all the accredited investors can actually get access to Uber, Lyft, Airbnb, or Palantir. And that's going to, I think, to Sebastian's point earlier, unlock some of that, discount and then increase value in that alone. So it may or may not leave out retail, but at least will link a lot of accredited investors around the world and increase the demand for great or good companies.
Yeah, just want to add a little bit on top of that. Basically, recently was the news that SEC is considering to lower the barriers for becoming like the accredited investor, and many investors, like potentially many investors who are now like retail, they probably will be able to get the accredited investor status, and so they'll be able to participate in those offerings.
I think I don't know, but I maybe a bit selfish to say this, but maybe would it be very bad if there was still some form of like the accredited investors can purchase some investments and the retail investors couldn't purchase into some bit. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about that the private securities, for example, those that normally you need accreditation status to buy into, those products are more risky by nature. So because of that, I would say that it's not entirely fair, but it kind of justifies why there's a need to at least still protect the retail investor. I mean, there was one ETF, I'm not too sure which one it was in the US, one of the many, but they were saying that there was actually a higher chance of that ETF actually succeeding because in terms of the barriers to entry over there, they kept it such that you must have like a certain amount of money. You can only buy like the minimum amount that you need to buy is quite huge. So because of that, you kind of protect the retail investors simply because they can't purchase into that. So they were saying that maybe this ETF would have more chances of success. I'm not sure whether that's true. I didn't follow up on that, but that's my thoughts.
So the last thing I say is that directionally this breaks down barriers and creates the likelihood there will be more institutional access. And one component of institutional investors is pension funds, which is retail investors. So from a portfolio level, retail investors will actually likely have those who are professionals who are managing their money on their behalf now have access to much greater asset classes. And so anything that pushes increases that likelihood and pushes the market in that direction is still is positive when viewed through the lens of retail investors as well.
Hi there, thank you panel. I'm a new retail investor, so I'm just curious, one question to ask, is this the right time to invest, and which one should it be? Because the picture that you painted, I'm actually quite positive, that with securitization of token, they'll be coming. So, just like views, there's no right or wrong answer, just want to hear your views.
It's not financial advice. Disclaimer, this is not financial advice.
You should Google a project called BitConnect. It's very excellent. It's a terrible project.
Key points to look out.
Sorry.
A good thing, key points to look out when you're evaluating like SEO, for example.
So, this is not advice, this disclaimer out there right now. But if you look at what drove the whole space last year, 2017, why you had this massive run, I think you can boil it down to two reasons. One was the technology itself. There was a lot of promises associated with the technology. This great app called ICOs was one thing. Another thing was that we're going to have scaling in a lot of these first layer protocols very soon. And then the other thing was there's this promise that this wave of institutional demand was going to come over as well, the capital inflows. And if you look at 2018, it's a little sobering because the scaling really hasn't happened. It's still being pushed out. And this wave of institutions that's going to come over and invest in the space hasn't come. And the reason why is because the infrastructure is still not ready. I mean, people here on the panel here most of us are building the infrastructure for that to happen. So if you look for the infrastructure and you look for the proper technology, scaling and other things, when that gets closer to happen, those are key KPIs. How about that?
Yeah, so I just like to add that the security token space is not a winner-take-all market, and we all need to work together to make it happen, to build the proper infrastructure. Even if we compete with each other at some point, so we can call it competition, but we still need to work together to build that infrastructure first.
I think for me, it's more of that STOs at the end of the day, they are still backed by something, right? So you may see a hype, a kind of speculative value that's attached to the STO simply because it's cool, it's an STO, right? But for me personally, I believe that the first batch of STOs, right, they will actually be STOs on asset-backed stuff, not equity. So things like property, for example, because then it's easy to, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's easier to evaluate. Yes, so you can actually you will know what's the value of that. It's just that the only difference is tokenized as opposed to equities, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you still have to value equities, but is it easier to evaluate an equity or is it easier to evaluate something that's asset-backed? So I don't know, that's my take.
I have a differing view on that. The whole idea of the tokenized securities is that it's going to promote innovation, and it's going to promote innovation in finance. So if you think of investing in traditional asset classes and you have the whole spectrum from equity to debt, what is to say that you cannot offer a hybrid of offering both equity-linked return as well as a debt instrument in a securitized token. There's no limitation on that. I'm not offering any advice, but all I'm saying is that all of us here today, we only constitute less than 5% of the entire community out there. So this is a collaborative effort. The 95% out there, they haven't been exposed to crypto, blockchain, let alone ICOs or STOs, right? So this is just the beginning. But the financial innovation that will happen in the tokenized space will just carry along with what everyone is developing. And I think there will be a new emerging asset class with the tokenized securities offering much better features than what equity-linked and equity-related investments are, and debt, because you can actually do some very interesting things in between.
Hi, my name is Georgina. I used to work with Sebastian, but apparently now I work at Facebook. My question is actually more broadly in relation to like the blockchain space altogether. I've noticed, like looking around the room, that, and I guess in terms of the panel, it's all very male dominated. As key opinion leaders in this space, what do you think we can do more to encourage women to get into the space?
Yeah, so we need like more women in blockchain space, because every time I go to some blockchain parties, like for example, there's like 100 guys and probably like 2 or 3 ladies who are like service providers, like with parties. And yeah, so yeah, so I totally agree. So we need like more women in the space, and I don't have a solution unfortunately. So I hope we can all together figure out, and especially the women in this audience participation. So maybe you can answer the question as well.
Curious to hear you guys think. I mean, I'm in the space, I'm here.
Okay.
What about
Cheers.
Sebastian?
Actually, maybe I can volunteer that. Okay, so
Women
my name is Joey. I'm actually the chair lady of the women's wing at the NUS Business School alumni. So one of the reasons why I'm here, because I'm planning to organize a cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, blockchain talk, and so I'm trying to get ideas and trying to see what people in the market that I can invite to this seminar that's coming up in November. So I'd like to invite the male folks to come and meet the women, and then the women folks to come and show your metal, to show what we know and how we can participate, in this whole community. So invite all of you to maybe pass me your name card if you want, like put you on the mailing list, and I will appreciate if the panel, if you're still around, if you are okay. I mean, I'm not sure some of you are here just because of this week or you're based here, so I'd like to explore to see if you could be a speaker.
We have a networking session-ish thing later. Maybe you can just share a little bit as well.
Yeah, hi. I'm just hearing a lot of all the sophisticated hybrid financial instruments and all that, derivatives and all that. But what about the unbanked? What's the future for that, for the security tokens? Or any views, or what do you think?
Also, we are very interesting.
Yeah, so actually, one of the value proposition of tokenized securities is that issuers can also start accepting cryptocurrencies besides like fiat, right? So, and like those who are like in those countries like Africa, right, or like other countries, they will be able to participate in those kind of offerings with cryptocurrencies. It could be like Bitcoin, or it could be like some stable coins, for example. And so definitely tokenization will help those people who are like unbanked to participate in building this kind of wealth for themselves.
Yeah, we're going to wrap up quite soon so that we have some time for networking. But great ending question about the female blockchain thing, because guess what?
one of the initiatives that we're doing right now is we made the same observation. Usually when there's a blockchain event or when there's like a blockchain week, we are added in as an afterthought for diversity. The females are usually added in as an afterthought for diversity. But that is also, I guess, the underlying problem of the tech industry in general, not just blockchain. But we're putting together a book where we are actually introducing interviewing, catching up with the female in the space to share their journey and experience, and hoping through that show the rest of the female population that it's not that scary, and to welcome more people in. So I hope to bring more female to the space.
And I think it's heartening that we are seeing more women in blockchain event. So next Monday actually in KL, there's a women in blockchain organized by NEM. So we'll be going there to support it. Yeah, like taking a break today. I just want to thank the speaker because they didn't know what they are in for today. They just like, oh, there's an event organized by this girl, okay, I'll be here. Or maybe beer and pizza. But I just really like to thank the speakers. Thanks for coming here today. It's been organized a very short time, and the speakers really satisfied. Give a round of applause.
So we hope you guys walked away with some new knowledge. We're going to give you time to get up close and personal with them. And yeah, I wonder if you guys would like to take a picture together. And we have a hard stop to leave this space by about 9:30 p.m. So enjoy.